Very good evening to you all, and I hope you're enjoying yourself. Let me just take this early opportunity to congratulate the organizers. I'm sure somebody will come and do that, but this is an absolutely fantastic event. It has been very interesting to meet old friends and to refresh our acquaintances, but it's also been a little awkward to meet some of the ladies we used to date. Who are now grandmothers. So I'm of class of 1975 is there. I've been trying to see my old classmates. I can't see them. Anybody 1975? Class of 1975? Thank you so much. Now, our principal then, when we joined in 1970, the principal was Mr. Campbell, followed by Mr. Sanders. Then there was Mr. Githaiga. And then finally, we had Mr. Wangai. So those were our principals in the 6 years that we were at Alliance. But for me, the journey started on, I think it was the 20th of January in the year 1970, when I jumped into a bus at a railway station. It was our first day at school. And I sat next to a certain young man, whose name I'll not disclose for the time being. And with my tin suitcase, we started talking, and I realized that he was from Alliance. And I got very excited, and I started asking him a lot of questions. And then at some point, he sort of elbowed me and told me, whispered to my ears, "Form 1, shut up." It came to me as a shock that, anybody who is going to Alliance is supposed to be a gentleman, could treat a Form 1 as badly as that. But you see, later I came to realize this man was actually in Arthur House, and later he joined the oil industry, and his name was actually George Mujos Murila. And so, as you enter the school those days, the first building that you see is the school hall. And then the next building that you see is the Curry Francis Lecture Theatre. And then the next one that was a significant building was a science block. But after that, it is all downhill. And I really was unimpressed by the quality of the buildings. The school was such a great school, but the buildings were not so great. And so I went into Francis' house, and now the proper bullying started. The proper bullying started. Now, this may be politically incorrect at this time when Alliance Boys is going through certain issues. But the point to be made is that bullying did start early, but it was rough. But rough in a sense that so that you do not grow horns, as we were told. There were two gentlemen who were really tough, and this was Bartonjo Chesaina, together with Johnson Kirongothi. They were known as real professional bullies. But fortunately for me, I got protection from a certain Anthony Otieno Abinya, who is now professor of medicine at the University of Nairobi. There were some tribal associations there. One was called the Alliance Luo Students Association, ALUSA. And so they organized a party for the newcomers. And at that party, I think it was held at the Alliance Boys. So Alliance Boys and Alliance Girls, Luos, were invited to that party. And on that occasion, one of the officials introduced me to a girl. Now, after I'd said hello, I didn't have any other story to tell. I'm not quite sure what a Form 1 is supposed to tell a girl. So I had nothing really to say. Now, we were, before you eat as a Form 1, you are told to do certain mouth exercises. Does anybody remember the mouth exercise? Exactly, I see you got it there. Exactly. So you open your mouth, and then you close. And then when you do this, it means you have to do your mouth like that. So, and that was standard. For the first 2 weeks, you really had to go through the mouth exercises before you had your meal. The other thing that I remember very distinctly, and you younger men and younger girls will not remember, is that we got our letters from Alliance Girls. They were delivered and given at lunch hour. So, up to today. Okay. So, so the letters came over lunch, and some of us who didn't have girlfriends were sort of amused or bemused whenever the good boys got their letters. But what I remember, when I got my first letter, which was in Form 2, first of all, the envelope, the quality of the envelope, and the handwriting tells you that this is from a girl. And then when you open the envelope, the quality of paper, you know, it was a certain quality of paper that, you know, the girls used to write in. So I'm not sure in this day of SMSs and WhatsApp, whether you still enjoy, you know, just reading a letter from your girlfriend. And there was something else that I still remember. It's called the school dance. I'm not sure that there's school dance anymore. But in those days, and I was in when I was in Form 1, actually, because I was a scout, I was allowed to go for the school dance to serve. And I remember very distinctly when the girls came. Actually, the girls would come from Alliance Girls, from Nairobi Girls, now Moi Nairobi Girls, from Kenya High, from Limuru, and so on. What I remember very distinctly is that when the music slows down, and that is towards the end of the dance, when the music slows down, the lights will be turned, they become dimmer, and some of the artists then, there was Roberta Flack, Killing Me Softly. Anybody remember that? And then there was Isaac Hayes, I Stand Accused. And they will play the long version. Now, if it so happened that Mrs. Waithaka, whom some of you would remember, if it so happened that Mrs. Waithaka was in the hall, she will shout and make sure that the lights are turned on bright. You know, if Mrs. Waithaka was in the room, she would go up the stage and make sure that the lights were turned back on. She would also be walking around to make sure there was a sufficient distance between the boys and the girls. And then if you did not have a girl at the time that the music has gone slow, now that is what was called floating. And if you didn't want to be the conversation the next day, you'd make sure that you go with your face to the wall and your hands like this. So, you know, just to show that you're not floating, because you'll become the conversation the next day. In terms of sports, as Mugo has mentioned, I started playing football very early. I think it was in Form 2, and then I joined the school team in Form 2. When I was now the football captain, I think that was in 1974-75, I took Alliance boys to the national games for the very first time. Ken Obimbo tells me that they continued 2 years after that. And after that, the school has never been back again to the national games. But finally, let me not take too much time. We had a physics teacher known as Mr. Ivan, who we call Boffin. Now he took an interest in me, and he taught me music. He taught me how to do a solo. In Form 2, he prepared me for the Kenya Music Festival. And before that, we would go, we had, I think it was called a music concert or something, but we'd meet either at Alliance Boys or at Alliance Guys just to prepare for the Kenya Music Festival. So when I went for the very first time, this time it was at Alliance Girls, I suffered stage fright. I really suffered stage fright. The lady who was playing the piano for me asked me which note. And because I was standing now on stage and there were girls like, I don't know, there must have been 400, 500 girls all looking at me, I couldn't even remember what note it was. And I said, anything. And so, she rolled her eyes and started playing. And when I opened my mouth, no sound could come out. And I struggled. Eventually, the sound came, and it was such a high pitch that the girls laughed. And then they realized that this is a young boy. They started clapping to encourage me. Eventually I got my sound back. And when it ended, I literally fled from the stage. But the fleeing was actually back to where the audience was, and I was doing my mouth. And the girls actually held me just to encourage me. It was really, really, really painful for me. But let me end by saying that one thing that I really thank God for is the Christian foundation that the school gave us. There was the chapel services. There was the singing of hymns. And all the hymns that I today sing, I'm an Anglican, by the way, and we emphasize on singing hymns rather than worship songs. All I remember is the foundation was at Alliance. And I really thank God for that, because that is what really instilled the Christian values that I espouse to this day. That is what, if I've been trained to be a leader, I must trace the foundation at the Alliance High School. And so today, I'm really, really delighted to be here and to look at so many people who went through the gates of Alliance High School and the contribution that they're making to this society. I want to thank you for your kind attention, and may the Lord bless you.